Spotlighting Hawaii's leaders.
We want to bring in Governor David E.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Lieutenant Governor, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. Mayor Derek Kawakami.
Thank you so much, Senator, for being here.
Spotlighting the issues.
Where is the virus right now in our community?
How much is this overall going to cost the state?
How are you responding to the community's concerns? Talk about the level of citations that you guys are writing.
Spotlight Hawaii with Yanji Denise and Ryan Kalei Suji on the digital platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser.
This episode of Spotlight Hawaii is brought to you by Long's Drugs.
Well, aloha and good morning. Thanks for tuning in on this Wednesday morning. I'm Ryan Kalei Suji, joined by Yanji Denise, and this is Spotlight Hawaii on the digital platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser. Yanji, this morning we are catching up with the Honolulu Prosecutor.
That's right. Steve Alm is joining us live here now from his office, and we're so happy to have him with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Yanji. Good morning, Ryan.
Morning.
I want to get your reaction to that article in yesterday's paper reflecting the crime in Waikiki that we're seeing and a lot of concerns about what more can be done. Tell us a little bit about your perspective on what we're seeing in Waikiki.
Right. Well, there have been some, horrendous incidents in the last few weeks in Waikiki, whether it's, somebody allegedly shooting some guy over a beef from high school, whether it's these folks coming out of a bar and getting attacked. It's terrible stuff. We're working with HPD. We will vigorously prosecute those cases and try to send the perpetrators to prison. That's going to, depending on what the charge is, it may be automatic. And if it's not, we'll try to convince the judges to send them to prison. So there's no question in the last few weeks, there have been a number of those cases.
I think there's a lot of concern overall of the potential for this getting worse. Of course, with more visitors arriving, more people being congregating in this, this one area of Waikiki. What do you think can be done in the long term? I mean, we've talked on this program about weed and seed and its expansion, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that. That's the success of that program in downtown. But what types of programs do you think can help prevent those types of things from happening?
Well, first, I'm always a big believer in looking at data and research, to really inform criminal justice policy, and to be cautious of anecdote, gut feeling, wishful thinking, or we've always done it this way. So right now, we still can't tell whether, God forbid, this is an increasing trend of violence, or if it's just, a spate of bad incidents. And we don't have data. You go to the HPD website, which is very helpful. They have data collected there, but we don't have any data from 2021 yet, let alone 2022. It did show from 19 to 20, crime was down, including violent crime, by 30% in Waikiki. And so, but that's overall for the whole district. One neighborhood, it might be up. And if you're the victim of a crime, none of these stats matter. So we will find out. I did think the major, made some good points about that, trying to figure it out. He pointed out that the numbers do appear to be up from 2021, but 2021, they were really suppressed because of COVID. People weren't out and about, and now they are. So whether this is, just the result of people being out there again, mixing again, we don't know yet. But you've got to remember, too, Waikiki has had horrendous crimes forever, unfortunately. It's where a lot of people come together. You have locals, you have tourists, you have people drinking, coming out. I remember when I first started at this office, this guy had a inflatable Godzilla, and a woman came up and petted it, and he stomped her to death. And this was on Kuhio Avenue. Peter Carlisle took that case to trial. And, I think, the defendant was convicted. But this is not to minimize in any way the horrible crimes that have just happened, but they're always going to be this type of crime. Unfortunately, the question is, what can we do to prevent it and to limit it? And I think you bring up a good point. And part of it is getting everybody organized. Part of it is people calling in when they see something wrong, calling 911, being willing to testify. They are putting up more cameras, which will be helpful. And things like Weed and Seed can be successful to get HPD and the prosecutors working as closely as possible, but also working with community members based on what those community members say are the biggest issues.
I wonder, we've been talking to Shopo and others in law enforcement and even the mayor about the lack of police officers just on the force itself. There is, as we know, there are hundreds of officers short. The last recruiting class had less than 24 folks graduate. Does the lack of officers make your job harder? And is that part of what's the problem right now?
Well, I think they do try to put a number of officers in both, especially coming right out of the academy. They can add more officers both in Waikiki and in Chinatown, two of the more busy areas and kind of hot spots. But I give HPD credit. They're not lowering their standards, because we saw that happen in a few police departments in the mainland. When they were really short, they lowered their standards. And that is an absolute disaster. You get lawsuits with those folks later on. They're not cut out to be police officers. It's a really dangerous and challenging job. And they're facing that, hiring young men and women who want to do that work. And we, frankly, whether it's us, the public defenders, the Attorney General's office, Corporation Counsel, we are all private practice. We are all looking for good young lawyers. So the bars, we're going to hire more people. As soon as, the bar results come out, we should be able to bring more people on board. But I think HPD has a number of people. They're doing what they can. They're adding another recruit class. And so I think, there are officers out there. We would always hope for more. I think people feel comfortable seeing a police officer, their presence, walking the beat, being around, and hopefully they can do as much of that as they can.
It's been a few months since the Weed and Seed program was implemented back into the Chinatown district that you spoke about earlier. I'm wondering if you can update on some of the things that you are seeing. You talked about data and looking at some of the numbers. Have you been able to review what's happening down in that area and what you're seeing with the program being reinstated?
Well, much of Chinatown looks a lot better, frankly. And it's been really good working with the police department, working with the residents. There are some very motivated residents who will take pictures of criminal activity, send it to HPD, and then they can, redirect their forces. And so if you go through the Chinatown area and that part of downtown, it looks much better than it did 6 months ago. There's still a couple of blocks, Mauna Kea Street from Hotel Street to Baratania, and River Street has been pretty much cleaned up of criminal activity and homeless folks. But Pauahi from River up to that park at Pauahi and Smith, you still have some issues going on there. But it stands out more when folks are the ones that are left. I give the city administration, the mayor, and Anton Krucky a lot of credit for working with River of Life. They have now moved their feeding operation out of Chinatown as of March 31st. And that has already had a noticeable effect. Because as the police say, and we say, it's not a crime to be homeless. But if you're getting fed there, a number of people then throw the food stuffs or the packaging on the sidewalk, and then they tend to hang around there. And Chinatown has suffered enough over the years. They deserve a break from that. Just like they deserve a break from a homeless person sleeping in their doorway and defecating and scaring away customers. It's time to give the businesses and residents there a break. And that's the whole idea, working with the city and bringing Weed and Seed back. And it already looks a lot better. I got a great letter from Bishop Silva talking about how the parishioners at Our Lady of Peace Cathedral, on Fort Street Mall can now go in peace and worship and leave and not get harassed by the people that used to hang around outside. Fort Street Mall looks totally different. So, we're going to be there for the long term. It's an ongoing process, but I think Chinatown looks so much better, and we'll keep at it and try to make it as safe as possible.
So Weed and Seed is one part of the, one program and one way to tackle this issue. But we know that there's a lot of issues with homeless folks who are chronic drug users and have some deeper issues that need to be addressed. Tell us what your office is working on in that regard.
Well, we're working with HPD and all the community groups, and there are a number of programs out there that are trying to help the homeless, whether it's CORE with the city, whether it's mental health kokua, whether it's health and harm reduction folks. They're trying to engage the homeless and see if they can get them into services and get them into housing and the like. But the sad fact is a number of the chronically homeless, and we're talking about the people sleeping on the sidewalk in Chinatown, they do not eagerly accept services. If you asked a guy sleeping there now with a crack pipe or ice pipe sticking out of his pocket, do you have a drug problem? The answer will be no. Do you need to go to treatment? No. And so if they don't take advantage of all these voluntary efforts, then if HPD arrests folks for drug possession, and they have arrested a bunch in the last 6 months, about 120, and 105 were homeless. We have now worked out a new procedure bringing everybody in the system together to try to get those folks into mental health and drug and alcohol treatment. If they have violent histories, we'll try to send them to prison just to protect society, but the vast majority do not. And so what's happening is they're going to OCCC, they're getting assessed by Department of Health, as well as some other vendors, and then they're being placed into our good drug treatment programs, whether that's Poelani, whether that's Hinamauka, whether that's Salvation Army ATS, whichever is a good fit. And I'm really happy to see that, get off the ground, because unless you deal with these underlying behavioral health issues, you can lock up a homeless guy for a while, let him out. He or she is going to go right back to the street. We have to try to get their heads on straight, help them heal themselves, help them get some help doing it. Then maybe if they get into housing, they'll have a chance to stay there and stay off the street. That's got to be the long-term goal.
Can you tell us, oh, sorry, Ryan. Can you tell us a little bit of like the name of that program, how it's funded, and how it's actually being operated?
Okay. Well, right now, it's not being funded by anyone. It's the best of all things. The different agencies are working together to try to make a difference here. And because of my background as the drug court judge and the Hope judge, and Cheryl Noy's background as a probation officer and on the paroling authority, we know all the drug treatment programs. We know the personnel there, and they have all agreed to participate in this. The Department of Health is doing a great job. They're the ones going into the jail, doing the OCCC, doing the assessments, and then getting them, the defendants lined up for the appropriate treatment program. It's called SUDA-FAST, SUDA-FAST, for substance use disorder FAST. Normally, if a homeless guy gets arrested, either he'll get released by the court and then he'll go back to the street, maybe a different place than he was before, or he'll be sitting in months in jail, get put on probation, that an individual probation officer will try to individually work with that person to get them into treatment. We're trying to do this at the front end when they first get arrested, even before they've pled guilty or get put on probation. And I think, the long-term benefit is to get these homeless guys off the street and stay off the street and get them into housing when they can actually think clearly and try to stay away from the dope and the people they used to hang out with.
Another thing that we seem to be seeing a lot of are these illegal gaming rooms. It seems like there is a different bust almost every week that just appears to be coming in with HPD cracking down on individuals or large venues. If you can speak to if this is something that your office is working with HPD on, and what we're seeing with all of these illegal gaming operations.
There are illegal game rooms all over the island, and HPD is tireless in trying to investigate them and hold people accountable. There are a lot of challenges to this. If it's a illegal, card game, they have to get in there, observe it going on. There is a bill making its way through the legislature that would make participating, being a cashier and other parts to this security in these gaming, making it a Class C felony. That might well have an effect on people willing to participate. Right now, it's a misdemeanor. It takes a lot of work for HPD. And then when they finally get to district court and they finally plead guilty, they get a $50 fine to go along with a record that's as long as your arm. So if that bill survives, making it a Class C felony, and we've been supportive of that, could have a real impact on getting these game rooms shut down. But at the same time, they are criminal activities, so they are going to attack criminal elements. you're going to get some people who want to go gamble and stuff, regular citizens, but you also get a lot of criminals. And there was a case recently out in Eva Beach where 2 armed robbers tried to rob the game room. And the security officer pulled out a gun and he shot them both, killed one, injured the other. But we looked at it and we saw that was self-defense on that person's part. So he wasn't charged. But it's a dangerous situation when you have the other guy, one's dead and the other's being charged with robbery. So, but if you're at a game room, you could be, in a crossfire, even though you had nothing to do with it. The other thing we're trying, so we'll work with HPD. We'll try to prosecute as many of those cases as we can. Hopefully the penalty will go up and that will help. But at the same time, we also filed a civil lawsuit called a nuisance abatement, which is aimed at the building owner. And if we are successful, they can be prevented from using the property for up to a year. And a building owner would hate that prospect. And so we'll be watching this carefully. It's working its way through the civil justice system, but we have other cases in line. If we can do this and it's a test case, we'll try to apply it to more cases. And again, we're working with HPD on making this happen.
We know that you work hand in glove with HPD, and one of the things that the mayor has said is that he wants a new chief as soon as possible. The police commission is taking a while, taking perhaps longer than they had initially expected to take in recruiting this new person. Does the lack of permanent leadership affect your ability to do your job? And what do you think about the search for the chief? Is it taking too long?
Well, if they were going to go the path of using a consultant, it might have been better if that takes 6 months for that to have started sooner. This is a difficult thing. I like Acting Chief Vanek. He's a smart guy. He was head of IT before. We had been working with him before he was made acting chief. But I think for any organization, having an interim boss is not as good as having a new one, because the department is unlikely to want to start new programs and want to do new things. HPD is doing their best, and we work with them dozens of times a day. I think we have 34 courtrooms that we're staffing every single day. But we work with them on multiple things, and it's going well. But it always would be good to have a new chief. I know they're being careful, and the police commission is being careful. Let's hope they pick a good one, and we can move forward from there.
I want to bring up a topic that was discussed in our conversation with Shopo and their president, and this is regarding charging criteria. He talked about a number of instances where there were some frustration on the part of HPD with the prosecuting office in the way in which some of the cases are charged. He brought up examples of, say, if a car is stolen and there was a key in the car at the time, a lot of times those cases are dropped because it's like the theft was given permission. He also brought up this example of robbery, and that there was during the charging criteria, it said if the crime was committed between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m., then that wouldn't be something that the prosecuting office would move forward on. If you can talk about this charging criteria and
okay.
what Shopo's concerns are about this.
Okay. Well, one, it's a little complicated, but first, the police arrest based on probable cause, which is the lowest standard in the criminal justice system. It's lower than a preponderance, more likely. It's lower than that. We will only charge people ethically that we believe the person's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt and that we have admissible evidence to prove it. So the two may not be the same. Often they are, and we're happy to do it. But, people's reputations get destroyed when they get charged. So we're careful about doing that. We want to be aggressive and charge all that are appropriate, but there is a disconnect there sometimes. The other part is that, and this gets lost, I think, in the translation sometime, is certain cases, whether it's armed robbery, murder, violent sex assault, where you have a suspect in custody, we will work with HPD, pull out all the stops, and do the entire investigation, review all the body cam footage, everything else, to charge the person within 48 hours. Otherwise, we have to let them go. That's the court rulings. And so some cases, we are absolutely going to do that. And I changed but other cases are going to get charged, say, in the normal course, because they're going to take more work on the police officers' part to go to the scene and interview people and maybe get forensics and stuff. So that's going to take longer. In both instances, people are going to get charged. Some are going to be done immediately, and the other is more in the normal course. Now, residential burglaries, when I came into office, were in the second category. They were going to get investigated. They were going to get charged, but it wasn't within the 48-hour time period. And last year we saw a number of cases where guys or men and women were breaking into people's houses at night, even if they saw a light was on, even if people were home. So we changed the charging criteria. So those cases, if anyone got caught, we would hold them and we would pull out all the stops to get it completely investigated and charged within 48 hours. So we're trying to be flexible with that. Everybody's going to get charged that we can prove beyond a reasonable doubt, some within 48 hours and some after that. So, but at the same time, just as HPD is trying to fill their ranks, when I came in here, we had maybe 89 deputies. We have about 93 right now. And I want to get up to our full complement of 104. That will allow more deputies to be in the trial divisions to reduce their caseloads a little bit, but it also will allow more deputies to be assigned to the screening intake division, and that will allow more cases to be put in the first category of immediate charging, and also will allow those other cases to get charged faster if we have more people. So, there's new leadership at SHOPO. We've had meetings. We're working together well. It's a very good partnership because we can't get along without each other, and we're our biggest partners in this.
I know that you're working to staff up more. You did say that a number of times. But we talked throughout the pandemic with you about the backlog in cases, just because COVID made it really hard to do jury trials and just process all the cases that were piling up. Have you caught up? And if not, I would imagine not. How far behind are you? And what does that actually mean for people who are, waiting for justice? And especially people who are victims of crimes?
Well, it's very frustrating because when courts are shut down, not only can we not do jury trials, we can't go to grand jury. And some cases like sex assaults, you want to take those to grand jury because otherwise you give the defense attorneys a chance to try to bully and scare the victims into not wanting to proceed. So those cases are typically done at grand jury. Now that, and the fact of the matter is, if there are no trials going on, the defense attorneys are not eager to try to settle any of the cases. They've got to hope that at some point they'll be dismissed for speedy trial. And that's not going to happen in the vast majority of cases, but that's their hope. So during the pandemic, when the courtrooms were shut, it was really hard for them to want to plead guilty to anything. Now that it's opened up, they'll go see their clients more at OCCC or talk to them if they're out of custody. And more cases are going to resolve via a good plea agreement. And that's how most of these cases, they're not going to be resolved by 9 courtrooms doing jury trials. We right now have 107 murder and attempted murder cases pending. And that's just those 2 charges. So there are a lot more burglaries, thefts, unauthorized control of a propelled vehicle, that kind of case. Many of those are going to get, dealt with plea agreements that are appropriate. But we'll do it from a position of strength. And if it's not a good agreement, we will go to trial and hope to persevere there.
And do you have any projections or thoughts on how long that will take to kind of get through this backlog to be able to be caught up, especially if you're short-staffed as well?
Right. I really don't. I don't want to give you a number. We're working faster through it. We're just glad they've opened up. And I have to say the judiciary was creative in that they've broken up the duties of the administrative judge for criminal. And so 2 judges now do that. So a different one does arraignment from some of the other meetings, so they can both handle some jury trials. So that adds, in a way, another another judge to be doing the jury trials, which is good. But even with 9 judges as opposed to 8, you're not going to get through a big backlog just by doing trials. You know, jury trials take a while. You've got to pick a jury. You've got to do the case. And in the case of murder cases or some sex assaults or high publicity cases, you're going to need a lot of jurors, and you've got to have a lot of room. The judiciary is still, cautiously working its way out of pandemic. So they still have mask requirements. They have social distancing requirements. So even if a jury trial is done, the jurors are spread out throughout the audience. There are only a few in the jury box. It's a little awkward for all the participants, but we got to do the best we can. And if a witness is making ID, the judge will ask everybody in the audience to lower their mask for like 3 seconds and put it back up so the witness can try to make an identification of somebody. So, I mean, everybody has to be flexible. This is a challenging time. Knock on wood, we're working our way out of it. And we will work through the backlog as soon as we can. But we will keep charging cases and trying to hold people accountable. And if they're violent or dangerous, we'll try to keep them in custody until their trial.
I want to circle back to what we talked about at the top. We're almost out of time, but there are some questions in the comments about Waikiki in particular and when they could see Weed and Seed come to their neighborhood. Do you have a time frame for when that could happen? And we know that it's in Chinatown and Ewa Beach. What are the other neighborhoods you're looking at? Is Waikiki the next one?
Well, the first thing is, we're sitting down with the Weed and Seed Inc., the board that was started a number of years ago to help manage this and to help support the seeding efforts. But the whole idea was the first site was Chinatown and Kalihipalama. And so we would go back there. We'll work with the board on this, but hopefully the next 2 sites would be the sites that were in operation before fully. And that's Waipahu and Ewa Beach. Now, it's important to remember the seed part never went away. After I left as U.S. attorney, it was not a priority, so the weed part died out. HPD kept it going for a year or 2, but that died out. But the seed part carried on. So they're still trying, doing seeding activities, like example, the culinary arts program at Waipahu or at Campbell, where high school students learn how to be a chef. Very supportive, very helpful, helps to keep some kids in school that might not otherwise be interested in it. So the seeding part is continued, but this takes a lot of effort. It's working with the community, and it's making sure we have the staff for it. Because I'll tell you, one of the things that surprised me coming in as U.S. from I had been a U.S. attorney before, I'd been a judge, but body cameras really started to be used in 2017. And I was not aware before becoming Honolulu prosecutor how much extra prep time that added to every single case. If it's a murder case, there might be 20, 30 witnesses. Well, if anybody police involved with, our deputies have to review the body cam footage. Even if it's a disorderly conduct from Chinatown, that may have 1 or 2 officers involved. That body cam footage has to be reviewed before we go into court the first time. So if somebody's arrested today for disorderly conduct, they spend the night at HPD cell block, they go to court the next morning. We get that body cam footage at 6 a.m. We have our staff voluntarily coming in that early to get the paperwork ready, and our deputies have to review the body cam footage. So all of that has to be done. So hopefully it's Waipahu, Ewa Beach, and then conversations are going to be started. Waikiki would be an absolute natural for that. It's not going to happen right away. I don't want people to get expectations up. It doesn't mean we're not working with HPD to solve as many crimes as possible and hold people accountable, and we'll keep doing that. But we're focusing on those other areas, and we are going to be starting conversations with people in Waikiki, mostly to learn what are the problems, what are the issues, what social services need in addition to arrests.
Well, Steve Alm, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's always very insightful hearing from you and talking with you in our conversations, because we also learn a lot just about the process and some of the things that you have to go through on your end for these trials and all these high-profile cases as well that we hear about. So we appreciate the time.
Okay, well, thank you. Good to see you both.
Aloha.
Aloha. Well, great to hear from him about all the action that his office is taking to try to tamp down crime in our community. One of the things he said that he's doing at the ground level is trying to staff up. They have 93 attorneys on staff. He wants to get that to full staffing at 104. He did mention that there is a significant backlog of cases, of course, due to the pandemic. Over 100 murder and attempted murder cases alone, not to mention all the other crimes that his office has to deal with. But they are chipping away at that. And they said the judiciary has been very good about trying to keep people safe as they process these jury trials. But Ryan, it just sounds like a lot of work ahead for that office.
Yeah, and we also got an update on the Weed and Seed program that we talked about towards the end there, specifically about its relation to when it's going to be in Waikiki, but earlier getting an update about the success that it's having in the Chinatown area. When he talks about it, you really understand the full scope of the program, that this is not sort of a one size fits all program that can just be plugged and played into any community. It takes some time and effort, as he said, to kind of develop those relationships with community partners and with area and neighborhood residents who also be involved in it. And he credits a lot of the success of what's happening in Chinatown to those who have stepped up in the community and some of the other programs that have been established around what they're trying to do there in Chinatown as well. Also saying and noting that the River of Life location and its now location of being out of the area, it has certainly also helped with what they're seeing in Chinatown as well.
Right. And for the first time, at least on this program, he talked about SUDA Free, which is a program, an acronym there, talking about getting folks who are homeless, chronically homeless, who are arrested for drug possession into treatment right away, as opposed to, prosecuting that crime and then getting them to treatment afterwards, but starting that right away to try to get those folks the help that they need and really eradicate that issue from the start. So that is something that is exciting that's happening. He's working in concert with HPD and other partners on that. And he said that that's not actually a formal program that costs any money. It's an initiative that his office is leading with those other partners to try to help these folks and really get them off the street, because that is so much of the issue that we see in downtown and in other neighborhoods. He did note that while he does like working with Interim Chief Vanek, the department would be served by having a permanent chief, and it would also be served by having more officers. He was very complimentary of SHOPO and HPD, saying that they are doing the very best that they can, but acknowledging that having a permanent chief and having more officers on the street, of course, is always helpful to his office and to the entire community.
Yeah, and also we started off the conversation talking about Waikiki and the crime that's happening there, and he's saying, frankly, there needs to be more data, and they need to look and examine on what's happening there. That if this is sort of just occurrences that are happening now, or if this is something that is long term, where they can really use the data that they're learning and speaking again with some of the community members about their concerns. And so while there is and has always been crime in Waikiki, this remains to be something that they will continue to examine and continue to prosecute those who commit crimes in the area as well.
On Friday, we're going to be turning our attention back to the COVID-19 BA2 variant with Dr. Tim Brown from the East-West Center. He, of course, is an infectious disease expert. He studies trends in COVID and other diseases around the world. He's been following this variant, and he's always a wonderful expert to have on. So he's going to give us his insights. We do know, talking to the governor earlier this week, that the BA2 variant now represents about 40% of cases here in Hawaii. On the continent, it's closer to 70%. So what do those trends bode for us here in Hawaii? We see Philadelphia and other cities now getting mask mandates back. And we just saw breaking news during this program that Mayor Rick Blangiardi has tested positive for COVID. So what does this mean for all of us? We're going to be talking about all of that with Dr. Tim Brown right here on Friday. And we do hope you join us then.
Take care. We'll see you then. Aloha.
This episode of Spotlight Hawaii is brought to you by Long's Drugs.